The forests of Oregon. They're beautiful. Oregon's magnificent forests are the first thing most people notice about Oregon, and the thing they will never forget. To the 4.25 million people that live here, the forests of Oregon feel like home. Roughly half of the state is covered in forest land, from the towering hemlocks and spruce along the coast, across the expanse of Douglas fir covering the coastal range and the Cascades, to the lodgepole and ponderosa pines to the east. Oregon's forests provide critical habitat for wildlife, sustainable industry for the state's economy, and play a crucial role in global climate regulation. The public owns roughly 2/3 of Oregon's forest land, overseen by the state and federal government, while private landowners and tribal communities manage the rest. Oregon's forests are deeply entwined with the cultural identities, the livelihoods, and the future of all Oregonians. When the first wagon trains made it to the end of the Oregon Trail in the 1840s, white settlers found forests, maintained and cared for by over 20 indigenous tribes, beyond anything their shared history would lead them to believe was even possible. Mature forests with trees reaching hundreds of feet tall, with trunks 10 feet or more in diameter. The forest appeared to be an endless resource, there for the taking, and the Oregon Trail provided the labor needed to begin making use of it. Logging massive, old-growth trees and then moving the big wood over rugged terrain was brutally difficult and dangerous work. The easiest trees were near waterways, so they could be felled and floated to mills. As more and more migrants arrived in the West, the construction boom was fed by lumber mills in Oregon. The railroad was the accelerant of the timber industry in Oregon, and rail lines extended logging farther away from the water routes. Oregon mills adopted steam power in the 1850s, which greatly increased productivity. Oregon's forests had gained worldwide attention by the turn of the century, and in 1905, on the 100th anniversary of the Lewis and Clark expedition, the city of Portland hosted a World's Fair as a showcase for the scientific and technological progress of the age. The forestry building at the Lewis and Clark Centennial Exposition was another sight to behold. An enormous log cabin built from massive Douglas fir trunks. It testified to the potential of the lumber industry in the Pacific Northwest. By 1938, Oregon had become the nation's leading producer of wood products, a title it still holds today. Technology advanced and the industry grew, and communities developed around it. Today, Oregon leads the nation in sustainable forest practices. In 1971, it put into place the first environmental protection laws for forestry and created a framework for adopting evolving science into its practices. Over the years, those laws have been amended more than 40 times. Most recently in 2022, through a collaboration of environmental groups and forestry professionals called the Private Forest Accord, Oregon's forest practice laws were overhauled with the most sweeping changes in 50 years. Largely focusing on protecting water quality and fish habitat in the face of climate change, while also ensuring future updates continue to align with the latest science. This historic agreement represents Oregon's steadfast commitment to sustainable forestry practices and will help ensure the forestry sector in Oregon continues to provide crucial wood products and remains one of the economic backbones of the state. But decades of advancement and modernization are now at risk. Catastrophic wildfire is increasingly threatening Oregon's forests. Driven by a combination of global climate change and lack of active forest management in federal forests, Oregon's summers are steadily becoming marred by massive wildfire seasons. Thankfully, Oregon has one of the best firefighting systems in the world. The Oregon Department of Forestry, working together with timberland owners and operators, serves as Oregon's wildland firefighting agency.
Sitting here on the Salt Creek fire. Started Sunday afternoon during the heat of the day, about 4:15 in the afternoon. My name is Dave Larson, and I serve as the Southern Oregon Area Director for the Oregon Department of Forestry. To put out fires in this climate and environment that we have in this decade of fire is becoming incredibly challenging, but what it comes down to is people. That's the most important resource we have. The expectation is that we put these fires out as safe as we can, as quick as we can, and as small as we can, and we utilize all those tools that are in our toolbox, but also using our partner agencies, our cooperators, and our landowners. You know, the landowner has a responsibility for fire protection. So it's a unique partnership, all of us working together to bring what we call that complete and coordinated fire protection system. This is my 35th fire season, so used to be a 1,000-acre fire was very uncommon. You know, that was considered a big deal. And you fast forward 35 years later, and it seems like we're seeing 3, 5, 10, 100,000-acre fires on the landscape. The climate and the environment that we're working in has changed. A real turning point for this agency was 2013. We really started seeing a lot of fires on the landscape. The cost of firefighting was going up, the duration that we're out there, the fire line intensity. And we just really, to be blunt, we have too many trees out there on the landscape. The availability of fuel combined with the climate, we're just seeing the number of fires dramatically increase and the duration from about 125-day average that we're up into the 140s, 150 days. And then the 2020 fire season was very notable because, I had communities within my district that actually lost homes and people, and that was in the Alameda fire. We had the Obenchain fire. We had the Slater Creek fire, just a lot of major fires when you had 9 communities either threatened by fire or 2 of them on fire and evacuating over 40,000 people. I don't have the silver bullet or the magical answer, but a combination of fuels management, fuels treatment, and getting the forest back to a place that fire has its natural role in it. There's the right time and the right place to use prescribed fire. It's not during fire season. It's not during, the heart of it, July, August, and sometimes into early September. And in order to do that, you're gonna have to go in and do some fuels reduction work and slowly and methodically and carefully reintroduce fire in the landscape and get it back into the culture of acceptance. The Native Americans were using fire on the landscape well before, Western settlement, and also folks that live out in the wildland-urban interface, recognizing that you live in a forest that will burn, and then what you can do to try to mitigate those damages, fire prevention. We've got to find a way to address the future of firefighting, of the agency, looking at finding ways to address that this is a year-round issue, and the retention and the training and the efforts that we put in to train those firefighters, and we want to try to retain those folks and keep them around. And we're in competition with multiple firefighting agencies, for those people, and it takes a special person who wants to do this as a career. So firefighters, working them year-round, using them to help do some of that fuels reduction work out there, and then having that resource available for us and turning it more into a year-round permanent job. And I know that takes money to do, but we are Oregon's largest fire department. Trying to keep pace with the current fire conditions, we're getting further and further behind.
How did fire school go for everyone?
Great.
Everyone learn a bunch? Well, we're going to put that to the test today, right?
We're training firefighters, and we bring them out here and mock a real fire scenario to help them with their training in beginner level. And then we bring the students from the intermediate and advanced out here to support and to help teach and educate them further in how to suppress a wildland fire.
Yeah, how'd it go? Went pretty good. Yeah. Gotta go line the hole.
So my name's Chad Calderwood, Oregon Department of Forestry, South Cascade District, the Sweet Home Unit. I'm a wildland fire supervisor, and today I'm the operations section chief for our Mid-Willamette Valley Fire School.
There you go. That's right. Relax. Good job. Well. Shovels are awesome. Relax.
So what you're seeing here is students performing handline construction. You have to dig down deep into the material. You got to remove all that wood from it to make it bare soil. And we can contain that fire and keep it as small as possible.
What I would do is, if I'm back in here, I'm going to open this part and this part. And if it's over here, I'm going to do the same. And what I'm doing is I'm exposing it to my Sawyer.
All right, hold approved. Okay. So since we're all looking good, I want everybody to walk around this line. And if anybody's got any doubts or questions, say it. Okay? And if that's so, we'll come back and we'll all look at it. And if you think it needs to be touched up more, we'll touch it up before we go to the next one.
I'm Milton Moran Jr. I am the president of Cascade Timber Consulting in Sweet Home, Oregon. We manage the Hill Timber Limited Partnership lands. And I'm out here at our fire school field site. They're learning the basics of fire. They're learning about the incident command system. They're learning how to work with other landowners and other agencies working together to put fires out. They're learning how to be safe, how to use the tools that they have. They're learning about fire behavior. What does fire do during different conditions of weather? What does fire do in different fuels conditions? What it takes to make fire start, fire grow, how to work safely, how to work with each other, how to be respectful of each other.
We've been digging hand line, which we were doing yesterday. We dug 2-foot hand line around both of these slash piles. And the whole point of doing that was just so that when these do light up, we could essentially try to contain as much of the fire as possible. My name's Nicole Howard. My title is Small Forest Owner Forester, and I'm here to get fire experience. I'm out here, this is my first year. I'm gonna say playing in the fire. We've been in the classroom for a week straight, and now we're at part 2. We've got the active fires going, and how did our hand line actually perform? We're putting a nozzle on it, so we're wetting it down. We're stirring it up with our tools. We've got shovels, hazel hose, we've got the blaskies. So that way, you know, we're stirring it up, seeing if there's any more hot spots, taking the gloves off every now and again to feel for those hot spots, and just basically rinse and repeat until it's all out.
In order to find if there's any hot spots on a fire, we use drones. And the drones are hooked up with a live camera, like to iPad on the drone control, and you're looking for a hot spot to show up, and then our firefighters follow up and we show them where those spots are, map them, we can GPS them. If it's a great big area, we can just point, there's a hot spot over there we need to put out.
So ODF coordinates with our private landowners by training in the off-season. They are an extension of our initial attack and our extended attack on small and large fires. We are supported with a lot of their equipment they provide, their folks. They have the knowledge and the resources on their property that helps us suppress their fires in a more timely, efficient manner. And so this training is vital to how we train our firefighters to keep them safe and to come home back to their families.
Many, many fires that start in the Forest Service start as a single tree lightning fire. And if you can get on it quick, you can put that fire out. If you can't get to the fire's going to get big. Sometimes the public lands, the fires are left to go, and we don't like to see that. Fire knows no boundary, it goes where it wants. We have to have access. The best way is a good road system. Airplanes and helicopters work great for slowing things down, but they can't put fires completely out. So private lands, we work really hard to maintain all roads that we build. Fire crews and equipment to those fires it's paramount in fire protection to be able to have access to the fire. And we work with our federal partners to ask them to maintain and maybe even recommission roads that are in areas where we are neighbors with them in order to stop fires before they get big.
Oregon's wildfire crisis is being driven by a combination of climate conditions and lack of forest management on federal forests. 97% of the acres that have burned in Oregon in the last decade have burned from fires that originate on federal land. Due to decades of fire suppression and policy decisions that prevent active forest management practices like logging, thinning, and controlled burns, our federal forests are overstocked with dead and dying trees that burn and reburn year after year at an alarmingly increasing scale. But there is another way. On privately owned forests, active forest management not only reduces the risk of catastrophic wildfire by managing fuel loads and maintaining a good forest road network, it also meets the growing demand for lumber. In Oregon, our mild, rainy climate creates one of the best places in the world to sustainably grow, harvest, and regrow trees, making Oregon #1 in sustainable forestry. Over 3/4 of Oregon's timber harvest comes from privately managed working forests. Oregon also leads the nation in lumber production. It only takes 60 seconds for Oregon's highly productive forests to grow enough wood to build the average-size home.
My name is Jerry Risk. I'm a forester for Roseburg Forest Products. Roseburg as a company is a family-owned timber products and land management company. We own over 400,000 acres of timberlands in Oregon and 200,000 on our East Coast holdings in our Roanoke timberlands. And we also have manufacturing facilities in Oregon and across the United States. So as a forester, it is my job to help manage the timberlands that Roseburg Forest Products own. That starts with planting post-harvest. We plant on average about 3 seedlings for every 1 tree that is harvested, and all of that backbreaking labor is done by hand. Thousands of trees every single day, and over the course of an entire season, our industry as a whole plants about 40 million trees.
Today we're out here planting Douglas fir, and we're doing that because it's a native species to this site and has the best chance to successfully establish here.
And what I can do is I'll load up in my pickup too and bring some trees over.
Seedlings they're planting are a containerized seedling stock. They're 1 year old. A typical day for a planter is they'll bag up, around 100 seedlings at a time, and then they'll go through the unit, hand planting all the trees. My name's Chris Mock. I'm the Valley silviculturist for Lone Rock Resources. An individual planter will plant between 800 and 1,000 trees per day. It'll take 30 to 40,000 trees to plant this unit. The ground's often incredibly steep, so it's a very demanding job. Depending on the location, we'll also plant species like ponderosa pine, red cedar, incense cedar, and redwood. One of the foundational elements of the Oregon Forest Practices Act is that we're required to reforest after harvest. In Oregon, the minimum is 200 trees per acre. At Lone Rock, we go above and beyond the minimum. Like in this forest, we're planting 360 trees per acre to ensure a healthy forest for future generations.
Douglas fir is a sun-thriving species. So you hear the term clear cut, and that's exactly what's behind me, and it gets a bad rap. But what a clear cut does is it mimics a natural disturbance like a wildfire, a landslide. And Douglas fir needs that wide open space to grow, and it's getting established and growing very well. I know from a distance, clear cuts can be unsightly, especially from the sky. But once you get closer to the surface and take a closer look, you'll see Douglas fir seedlings and other native species that are reestablishing post-harvest. At about 45 to 50 years old, the trees are mature and ready for harvest.
That's when we contract out all of our work to family-owned businesses, small contractors that are local to our communities, and they come out and do the harvesting of our timber. Technology has come a very long ways over the decades. This unit behind me is 100% mechanically logged. This is essentially cutting the trees and then has the ability to directionally fell them and place it exactly where it wants, protecting streams and other natural resources. Once the trees are cut, that machine can then move the trees down the hill where a processor is cutting certain lengths and diameters to be sent to specific mills. A log loader will then take those logs, load them on a truck where it is sent off to its final destination to be manufactured into dimensional lumber, plywood, and other wood products. When logs are loaded on a truck at our harvest units, every single piece of that log is going to be used. From the lumber that's sawn out of it, to the chips and sawdust being used to create other products as well. Any bark or residuals that are left over after that process can then be turned into what's called hog fuel and used to power our facilities. Our Dillard sawmill last year created enough energy to not only power itself for the entire calendar year, but also 4,000 homes in the local community.
Here at Roseburg Forest Products Dillard Mill, the constantly growing global demand for wood products is being met every day. This mill can process 185 loads of logs each day, which produces enough lumber to build 120 to 180 average-size homes. Modern sawmills are highly mechanized, highly technical, and highly efficient. Lasers scan each log to maintain precision and optimize cuts on individual logs, and high-speed cameras and sensors increase precision. Mechanization requires highly skilled workers and requires fewer of them to physically move, sort, and mark lumber, dramatically increasing safety. Modern mills are also highly efficient. Nothing gets wasted. Even the sawdust is captured and used for a product. Oregon is leading the way in sustainable wood innovation. As the global population rises, so is our demand for structures where we live, work, and play. Increasingly, wood is being employed in a new construction method called mass timber.
This building was purpose-built for the testing of mass timber, and it's a mass timber building itself. If you look around, you can see the use of glue laminated timber columns, also glue laminated timber beams, laminated veneer lumber roof joists. On top of that, the whole outside of the building is skinned with mass plywood panels. My name is Phil Mann. I'm the Technical and Operations Manager at Tallwood Design Institute's Emerson Advanced Wood Products Laboratory at Oregon State University. Tallwood Design Institute is charged with advancing the use of mass timber in the built environment. So mass timber is a subset of engineered wood, so that means you're taking smaller units of wood and assembling them into some kind of larger product that can be used in a structural way in construction. Wood is a renewable resource. It also sequesters carbon. There's a lot of potential to really limit carbon output by using wood in the built environment in ways that we've been using concrete and steel for the last 100 years. This particular panel is called mass plywood and is manufactured here in Oregon using Douglas fir veneers. At the moment, we've got an architectural feasibility test testing the use of mass plywood panels for workforce housing to help address some of the challenges of our housing shortage in the Pacific Northwest. We think that the sustainable use of mass timber combined with sustainable forestry practices really means that there's a really strong future for the timber industry in Oregon.
The forests of Oregon. We want to see them remain vibrant and productive for future generations. Critics worry that timber harvesting contributes to climate change, but the reality is just the opposite. Oregon's forest practices incorporate decades of science and professional expertise and are the most advanced in the nation, ensuring that wood from our state is certified sustainable. We know carbon is at the root of climate change. Young, growing trees capture carbon at a faster rate than older, mature trees. Wood is the only renewable building material that stores carbon long-term. Managed forests provide a variety of habitats supporting diverse wildlife. Partnerships between landowners, environmental groups, and scientists are crucial in maintaining this balance. When done sustainably, forest management creates benefits for all: diverse habitats, clean air and water, renewable building products, and access to recreation.
I now have the pleasure of managing the same timberlands that I grew up on as a kid. And being a father of 2 young sons, I look forward to the day that we recreate on the same timberlands that I'm managing. And I take that responsibility very seriously, because I want my sons to have the same opportunities that I did.
Stop into your local ODF, your Oregon Department of Forestry office, stewardship foresters, small forest owner foresters. We're here to help you. You know, we're here to provide any resources that we can to you. If we don't know the question, we're going to find the question. We're going to get you the help that you need.
This is Milt. Take 1. Mark.
My son followed into my footsteps. He got into the fire business, started out on a hand crew, and worked his way up. You know, my mom didn't like me getting into the firefighting business, and she wished I wouldn't have. And I didn't want to tell my son he couldn't do the same kind of stuff, because I understand, I guess the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. But very proud, and to make it a generational or a family type thing.
You always have one friend that wants to put the largest log they can find on the campfire. And so I ask people to remember that and think about what happens to that log when you add it to the campfire. If you've got a really dense piece of material like a log, it tends to char on the outside, but it takes a long time for that log to fully burn.
We just shot a Roosevelt elk. Absolutely incredible. Oregon forest forever. Thanks for getting us out here.
Oh boy, this was harder than I thought.
It always is.